Please be prepared.
I'm running out of songs to use, just so you know.
Well, it was very quiet in the room anyways. They all listened.
We were all stunned.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome here, everyone, and at this time, I'd like to give the opening to Councillor Jake Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the early 1970s, the skyline of Steinbach was graced by a 400-foot MTS tower that was built in the 1960s and two feed mills that were around 70 feet tall on Main Street. In 1974, a 155-foot water tower was added to the skyline. When Steinbach installed the first wells and water lines in 1956, it was seen as very progressive and certainly moved the town forward. One of the issues that they had to deal with on an ongoing basis was the water pressure that was inconsistent and constantly fluctuating. The closer you were to the water plant at K.R. Barkman Park, the better and more consistent the water pressure. Former councillor and mayor at the time, A.D. Penner, just happened to build his new home on Sunrise Bay, which is as close as possible to the water plant. One way to solve the problem was to build a water storage tower that would distribute the water pressure evenly throughout the town, as well as provide a more consistent water pressure in case of a fire event. The budget for the new water tower was $175,000 in 1972. Those were the initial estimates when they were presented to council. Final cost of construction 3 years later was $275,000. Sound familiar? The tower construction was part of a $2.7 million water and sewer upgrade and expansion of our primary distribution system with an agreement, a three-way agreement between Steinbach, the federal and provincial government, the grant funding of $1 million from the provincial and federal governments. Town council borrowed $1.5 million over 20 years at an annual interest rate of 9.2%. It was stated by Mayor A.D. Penner that they did not expect to raise the taxes, as a 20-year debenture was maturing that same year and those dollars would roll over into making these payments. In a report in the Kerala News in January of 1973, A.D. Penner was quoted as saying, "The decision we must make will be a most sobering decision in the history of Steinbach." To put into perspective in today's dollars, the $1.5 billion would be like borrowing $9 million today. Just the cost of the water tower in today's dollars would be around $2.3 million. In 1974, Steinbach had a population of 5,500 people, and the minimum wage in Manitoba had just gone up to $2.15, and the average salary in the province was just under $10,000 a year. The town of Steinbach had a budget of just over $1.5 million. In today's terms, the 9% interest isn't a reality. We hope it won't be either. But Mayor Penner and council took a lot of heat at the time for borrowing those dollars at that percentage. But actually, in the next 10 years, they look pretty great as interest rates skyrocketed to as high as 18% in the mid-80s. The water tower is 155 feet tall and holds 450,000 imperial gallons. The water at the top of the tower weighs 2.2 tons, or 2,300 kilograms. Just imagine that amount of water that's sitting 100 feet in the air. At construction in 1974, the water in the tower could supply the town for approximately 1.5 days, as the daily average usage was 320,000 gallons per day. Today, our average usage is 1.2 million gallons per day. Mayor A.D. Penner said the water consumption was at 66 gallons per day per person on average. I asked our Mike Hepner, department head for Waterworks, and he said the average yearly consumption today per citizen is 65.5 gallons per person per day, which it's amazing that it continues to be the same. But the max amount on high heat days today is around 118 gallons per day per person in summer, and the lowest in winter would be around 46 gallons per day per person. The water tank at the top is 52 feet high and 45 feet wide. When the tank is full of water, it's 47 feet deep at its deepest part. The water is gravity fed to all users in Steinbach at a consistent water pressure of 58 to 70 pounds pressure, depending on location. Today, it is a combination of the water tower and pumps that supplies the pressure. On Wednesday, October the 6th, 1976, the headline in the Kerala News feature section had the headline that read, "It was a nice day for jumping off water towers." On Saturday, October the 2nd, 1976, the former resident of Steinbach, Murray Jantz, sailed 140 feet in 20 and a half seconds on a hang glider to launch a Steinbach and Area United Appeal. The tower has been painted 5 times in the last 48 years and has had a few different items painted on it with the standard Steinbach name on it most of the time. In the late 1980s, I do remember council considering painting a happy face on the tower. That didn't go over. And in the 1990s, they put up www.steinbach.ca. We had moved into the techie area, I guess. And the last painting was completed last year of the tower, and apparently the name Steinbach is going to be going on it in the next year. The water tower has been a source of pranks from local media. Although I could not find the article, I do remember the Kerala News that was printed on April 1st, I believe in mid-80s. On the front page story was of a major water leak from the tank of the water tower, going as far as to having a picture of it on the front page, and a story of local flooding on McKenzie. The Daily Bonnet has used the water tower as fodder for at least 4 different times, having it filled with Rogers Golden Syrup or Schmontfat or even champagne last New Year's. The best story that I found from there was that the city was going to spend $30 million to put in an elevator and glass viewing floor to improve tourism in the area. I was at the Carolyn looking for more information on the water tower when editor Greg asked me about a rumor that the water tower had a boat in it. I'd never heard of it. I'd been investigating the water tower for a while. So I asked our department head, Mike Hepner, if there was any truth to the rumor. His response was, not is, and we want to keep it a rumor. So here, Greg, the truth of the matter is, 10 years ago, the water tower needed a complete inspection of the inside of the holding tank. An inflatable boat was hauled up the inside and used by engineers to inspect and measure the tank wall thickness as the water level was slowly dropped. The engineers took their boat with them when they left. So, Greg, that's the answer, but Waterworks still wants to keep it a rumor. The water tower has been an important part of Steinbach's skyline and infrastructure story. Mr. Mayor, the next time you turn on the tap to brush your teeth, you have started a chain reaction that drops the level in the water tower, turns pumps on to refill the tower, then well pumps to supply the filtration system that refills the water supply reservoirs that supply the water tower. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Well, it looks like we take our tap water for granted. We don't realize what it all takes to just turn the tap on. Thank you very much, Councillor Siemens. Council, we have the agenda in front of us, looking for a motion to adopt. Councillor Schweitzer, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We have the minutes of September 20th, 2022, with the regular council meeting, starting on page 1. We've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Siemens. Any comments?
No comment.
Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay, we have, we'll move to number 6, 6A, public hearing, Subdivision 4451, 2022-8706. This is referring to subdivision 3 lots and the road widening and street renaming from Industrial Road West to Campbell Drive. Starts on page 4 of our package. At this time, I will close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Warkentine, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the application for subdivision file 4451-2022-8706 being applied for by the Steinbach Community Development Corporation, seeking to create 3 industrial lots of approximately 2 acres each with frontage on Acres Drive, widen the existing Industrial Road West right-of-way, and rename that particular section of road from Industrial Road West to Campbell Drive, with leaving an existing residual parcel of about 10.5 acres. The Public hearing for this particular subdivision application is for the purposes of the road widening. The subject property is currently designated as industrial under the Steinbach Official Community Plan. It is zoned M1 Light Industrial. Subdivision application is being completed to be able to sell these lots for future industrial development. Comments from community planning indicate that there are generally no concerns with the application. Recommendation is that council approve the application for subdivision and approve the change in name for the road from Industrial Road West to Campbell Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Horting. Is there anyone here with comments, questions, or objections to this file? I will say one more time. Is there anyone here with comments, questions, or objections to this file? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Penner,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Make a motion to approve.
second by Councilor Hebert. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. In the past, we have been subdividing some lots in the industrial park, but those lots are now pretty much, I think, all taken up. With the extension of Acres Drive done this summer, this has now opened up some new inventory, and administration has made it known to us that the 2-acre lots are quite desirable for individuals that are wanting to get started in the industrial park. And this also still allows a residual 10.16 acre lot for if there was a larger need for a larger parcel, or if when those fill up, potentially subdivide that into more of the 2-acre lots. And so it's great to see that our industrial park is attractive to investors, and I feel like this is a great thing to continue to help see our city grow.
Thank you. Anything further?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we look at these lots, they're on the new extension of Acres Drive. And I'd just like to give the accolades to Friesen Hauling for the great job they did on that street. And having completed that street, of course, now the Development Corporation is showcasing these new lots. As we know, we have limited industrial lots in Steinbach. And the intent of this subdivision is to attract light industrial to this area and thus benefit the bigger picture of promoting a diverse and progressive city. This is real good for the city. As Councillor Penner just said, we have limited lots left in Steinbach, so it's a good move for that area, seeing it's a new street, and the city will move in that area, in that direction.
Thank you, Councillor Hebert. Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Well, council, I have nothing to add, so I'll go right to the question. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Council will move now to 6B. This is Conditional Use CU-2022-02. It's referring to 110 Industrial Road. Starts on page 36 of our package. At this time, I will close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Workentine, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, conditional use application file CU-2022-02 for a property with civic address of 110 Industrial Road in Steinbach is being applied for by Mr. Stefan Hodelman, with the owner of the property being 101-34593 Manitoba Ltd. Purpose of the conditional use application is to allow the operation of a retail sales business on the subject property. Pursuant to City of Steinbach zoning bylaw 2100, all retail sales on property having a zoning of M1 light industrial zone require a conditional use approval. Notification as required under the Planning Act has been issued. There is no written correspondence on file. With respect to the application, it is being applied for the entirety of the property. With respect to the general area, there is a mix of generally M1 light industrial and M2 heavy industrial uses within the general area. The subject property has been developed as an industrial site containing multiple warehouse-style buildings, with each having multiple units. Recommendation from administration is that council deny the application.
Thank you, Mr. Workentine. Is the applicant here today? Do Do you wish to speak? Okay, take the podium, state your name and your address. It's for the record, and then proceed.
Okay, I'm Stefan Hodelman. I live at 36161 Lone Boulevard, Steinbach, or St. Anne on the border. So this particular application was, we had a charity approach us, and that charity, not sure if I'm allowed to say their name, I think I am, Rock Eastman, and they're running out of space of where they're at right now, which is also an industrial area. Their intention was to use units 9 and 10 as for used book sales. And as I was doing this application, I was thinking of applying for conditional use for the entire site in regards to retail, just because I could be here 6 months down the road for somebody else that wants to use the frontage from Industrial Road as retail. I think there's other precedent on Industrial Road, like Lumber Zone, Concrete Source, Skirts & Co., and I think there's another water company that sells water. So there's a few walk-in retail spaces. My understanding from the zoning bylaw is that it is, like, I am allowed to have some operations like a restaurant, if I recall correctly. And so it does kind of make it a little bit interesting for me why retail didn't make it into that category. I don't quite see the line of thought there, but regardless, so yeah, this is something that we have to apply for. And again, instead of coming multiple times, I was hoping to get this conditional use for the entirety of the project, although there's no other retail sales currently intended. So as of right now, the only intention that we have is unit 9 and 10 for Rock Eastman, and that would be used book sales. So I think that's...
Okay, thank you. Any questions, council, for the applicant? Okay, you can take your seat. Is there anyone here with comments, questions, or objections to this file? I'll say one more time. Is there anyone here with comments, questions, or objections to this file? Okay, seeing none. I will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Council Schweikster?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion to deny.
I'll second.
Second by Councillor Siemens. Go ahead, Councillor Sway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly appreciate the applicant's request, and it's always good when there's new development and industry and business taking place within the city. We do have zoning categories for a reason, and the reason, of course, we have it is to ensure that we have the correct uses at a particular property. There's a number of reasons why retail is not permitted automatically in industrial zoning. Partly because our industrial parks are subsidized by the city because we're trying to attract more industry. So obviously we want to direct retail to commercial spaces which are not subsidized in the same way and which are more appropriate uses. Also in the industrial park, parking is an issue, and even if there's enough parking at this moment on the property itself, there is no street parking allowed along Industrial Road, for example, so this is different than a lot of other streets. And so there are reasons why retail is a conditional use as opposed to a permitted use. The applicant is right that there is some precedent for allowing retail in industrial zones, but in each of those cases there's something unique about it. So for example, in the previous one that was or a couple of the previous ones that were approved had to do with, for example, there's manufacturing that's also there, and then retail is a component of that, sort of that goes along with it. Or, you know, there's a case of a thrift store, again, sort of a different type of situation there. Obviously, we want to support charities. I mean, that's a very noble request. The challenge here is the request is for the entire property. And we don't want to create basically a retail strip mall, which has the potential to do that if we allow for retail there. Because even if the current applicant doesn't ever have any intentions of doing that, this sticks to the property. If we approve this, then that means that from this point on, full retail is permitted on the entire property in all of the units. And that significantly changes the character of the industrial park. And so again, The precedent is that we allow retail in limited circumstances where there's something unique about it, and it's usually like one part of a property, you know, that's facing out, that sort of thing. But this just simply goes much farther and turns it into something other than a primary focus in industrial. That's why we need to deny.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Schweitzer. Anything further, Councillor?
A little bit more, but not much. That was very well done. The issue I have here is exactly the same thing. It's overall. Now it's not city council and administration making a decision as to what is retail and what isn't retail in a commercial or an industrial park. We do have an industrial park. We also have retail space in Steinbach. And we need to keep those two separate. I voted in favor last time of that single use, but that was a single use with manufacturing, as was stated. And so the biggest issue I have here too is that to make a blanket decision to that every retail should be allowed there on every one of those units, then it's not council making that decision anymore. We've given our decision-making powers away to somebody else to make the decision what retail goes in there. And I do have parking concerns there as well, but we should deny this as it currently stands.
Thank you, Councillor Siemens. Anything further, Councillor? Councillor Penner?
I will support the motion. I think the other important point is that what this does is it takes away retail opportunity from, you know, developers who've put up expensive commercial space in other areas. So they're investing in our commercial areas, spending a lot, and then, you know, there's this retail space in a subsidized area, and it really makes it not a level playing field. It's really unfair, actually, to the people who've set up retail space in the areas where we actually want them to set up space. So for that reason, I'm going to support the motion.
Councillor Hebert.
My position is pretty black and white when it comes to retail in a industrial area or light industrial area. In the past, I have voted against it. I voted against 94, the conditional use there, 94 industrial. And again, I just do not see that this is retail is a good fit in that area. As indicated by Councillor Schweitzer, there's a purpose for light industrial, and for the city to advance in that area, we need to keep the lots light industrial.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Well, council, there's not much more to add, but I do agree with what's been said. I do believe that council needs to reserve the right to make the decision on what unit can be retail, what retail can be allowed in that area. And if we just give it a blanket, retail's allowed, then there's a law of unintended consequences. We really don't know what all is going to happen there. And that takes control away from what is designed to be industrial, takes that control away from us and our city to ensure that we have got industrial zones for our community. So I will support the motion as well. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, council, we move down to number 8, reports and recommendations of city manager. This is for a land sale. Public reserve on Acres Drive bylaw. It starts on page 45 of our package. Mr. Warkentine, could you please introduce this file?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This file arises as a result of a landowner having a property address of 60 Acres Drive in Steinbach, seeking to expand its existing parcel of land to allow for further development on the site. Just south of the subject property, or of the commercial property at 60 Acres Drive, there's a parcel of public reserve land, approximately 49 meters long by about 6 meters wide. It's not large, however. There is interest from the party requesting consideration from city to purchase that parcel of land. Having reviewed the file and reviewed the drainage plans for the area, Administration has come to the conclusion that it would not negatively impact the future development of the area for the city to consider the sale of this parcel. However, if City Council approves the sale of the parcel of land, which would be most of the existing public reserve, it would be subject to the sales agreement that is contained in the package, subject to a revision of the Schedule A, which was part of the original agreement, subject to the closing of the existing public reserve, and also subject to the closing, or sorry, the consolidation of the parcel being sold with 60 Acres Drive, and for the amount of $19,000 plus applicable costs, and that the property be sold to Priority Auto Ltd., and that's the recommendation from administration.
Thank you, Mr. Workendine. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner?
Motion to approve, subject to Schedule A.
Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor Hebert? Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is fairly straightforward, given that the city has already, dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's, so to speak. And if our administration is not concerned about this, I see no reason why we shouldn't go ahead and sell that portion of land to Priority Auto.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with Councillor Penner, and I see Priority Auto as a successful business, and if they have need for a little bit of extra space, I don't see any reason why we would stop them from doing that, and if this agreement goes ahead, I think it's good for them and for us.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Okay, council, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Council will move down to 9A, accounts payable, back of the book. We've all had a chance to review, looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Siemens.
No comment.
No comments. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We have 9B, this is bylaw 2213 to rescind second reading. It's on page 52 of our package. Mr. Workentine, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council. With respect to the previous consideration of zoning bylaw 2213, City Council originally gave this particular zoning bylaw a second reading at the September 6, 2022 council meeting. After that meeting concluded, it was determined that there was an error in the information that was included in the public notice. And as a result, Councillor Michael Swagstra declared a notice of motion at the September 20th, 2022 meeting regarding that council reconsider the decision to approve second reading of bylaw 2213. And according to the Municipal Act, City Council may now reconsider that particular approval of second reading. And the recommendation is that council rescind second reading of bylaw 2213.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Workentine. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion that we rescind second reading on this bylaw.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Penner? Go ahead, Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whenever we have a public hearing, there's protocols and rules that we have to follow that are laid out by the province. And one of those things is we have to give proper notice to the public, and that includes like the written notice. And in this case here, there was an unintentional error made with the information that was on the public notice. And so to ensure that we're following the rules precisely, we have to rescind second reading. And so that way we can put the notices out again and make sure that the correct information is on there. I will note this does not happen very often. It is very rare that an error like this is made. But obviously mistakes do happen once in a while. And when a mistake happens, we need to identify it and correct it as soon as possible. And that's what we're doing here.
Thank you. Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing? No. Council, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have 9C, excavator license. We have a motion on page 54, looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments?
No comments.
Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have 9D. This is bylaw 2216 OCP. This is for number 6 First Street. Starts on page 55. Mr. Worthington, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, bylaw 2216 is an application for an official community plan amendment for a property at number 6 First Street and part of number 78 PTH 52 West in Steinbach. The owners of the properties are 100835559 Manitoba Inc. and James Wientz. The applicant under bylaw 2216 is 6204741 Manitoba Inc. The purpose of the application is to amend the particular land use designation from industrial policy area to central business district policy area. Recommendation is for council to give this bylaw first reading so that a public hearing may be scheduled.
Thank you, Mr. Worthington. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Siemens?
Motion to deny?
Is there a seconder? Sorry, cannot find a seconder.
That's all right.
Okay. Councillor Swagstra?
Motion to approve?
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Penner? Go ahead, Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As was noted, this is a proposed change to the official community plan to change this section of land at 6 First Street from industrial policy area to central business district policy area. There's obviously a development that's proposed for here. And first reading simply means that we will enable a public hearing to be held, and that means we will hear from the applicant and we'll have an opportunity to hear from the neighborhood. And so I think that for a project of this nature, considering that this is a significant proposal, this is one where it makes sense for us to go to the public hearing, and that's the reason we're giving first reading.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think normally that's what we do. We get first reading so we can push it to the public hearing, but in this case, I don't think it warrants it. What I have a problem with is that the Central Business District has I think it's a 2-foot side yard to the sidewalk. So they can take, and the picture shows on page 77, so under the Central Business District, they can take and put that building within 4 feet of the sidewalk where it sits today. And that won't come to council. So if we make this change and we allow it to happen after the public hearing, and one example of that would be the MTS building that was built on Brant Road. When it all went up, council was surprised. That was a decision that was made with the Central Business District. Unless I have that wrong, administration, do you have any?
There's, I believe, are you asking a question
Yes.
of Mr.?
A question to administration. Do I have that right? On Central Business District has a 2-foot building you can build within 2 feet of the property line.
That may be correct. I would need some time to confirm that. However, that would relate to CBD designation under the city's zoning bylaw.
Yes.
It wouldn't apply to the central business district policy area under the official community plan. Those are two separate, even though they are similarly named, they do refer to different policies.
Okay, so I might have that mixed up. But in this case, I don't think it would be prudent for City Council to allow a building to be built at that location. In order for that to happen, we need to change the plan as it is today, and I don't think we could go to public hearing, and if it's approved, we will go to public hearing. But I think those facts need to be stated. To have that building built there would be out of character with what I would see as possible in that area.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The choice here is we either want more information or we don't want more information. And in this case here, we have a new proposal and there's a significant project that is being considered, and it's at second reading, when we have the public hearing, that we get all the information. As we've just found out during this discussion, we don't have all the details and all the information because this is first reading. The time when we would deny first reading is when we've previously considered a similar project and for the same area, and someone is coming back with something that isn't that much different, and we know how that's going to go because of the fact that we've had something almost identical in the past. In this case here, this is something we have not seen before, so it's important to get the information. This may or may not be approved at second reading, but the vast majority of time, and this would include one of those times, it makes sense to give first reading so that way we get the information, we can hear from the applicant, our staff can give us information, and neighbors can comment, rather than cut it off before we have the information and saying, we don't want to hear anymore. So I think we should move ahead with first reading so we can get the information.
Thank you. Council, I too would like to see more information on this, and I know to get that, we have to go to, we have to have first reading, and I think this is a good project to get more information on and to have first reading. So I will support this motion. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have 9E, bylaw 2215, rezoning 6 First Street. That's on page 65. Mr. Workstein, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, bylaw 2215 is a rezoning application for the same parcel of land, being 6 First Street and a portion of 78 PTH 52 West. Owners of the properties again are 100-83559 Manitoba and James Wientz. The applicant for bylaw 2215 is 6204741 Manitoba Inc. The purpose of the rezoning bylaw 22.5 is to rezone a portion of the particular properties noted from RLD residential low density to RMD residential medium density to allow the development of a 3-story multifamily building on the site. Recommendation is for council to give this bylaw first reading, which would allow a public hearing to be scheduled in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Organtine. Council, how would you like to proceed? Penner,
Motion to approve.
second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the course of this last term and even a little bit before that, we have seen First Street be starting to redevelop from residential single-family to on low density to medium density. So I feel that in the nature of the redevelopment, it is fair to bring this to second reading for a public hearing.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
Further? Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 9F, this is bylaw 2217. This is rezoning 205 McKenzie Avenue. Starts on page 69 of our package. Mr. Workstein, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, this application for rezoning under bylaw 2217 is for a property located at 205 McKenzie Avenue in Steinbach, with the owners of the property are Elizara and Rebecca Legaspo, with the applicant for bylaw 2217 being Kingdom Home Building Inc. Purpose of the bylaw is to rezone the subject property from RLD residential low density to RMD residential medium density to allow for the construction of a 4-unit multifamily building on the site. Again, recommendation from administration is for council to give bylaw 2217 first reading, which would allow the scheduling of a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Workstein. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Dykstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll give the motion for first reading.
Second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The proposal here is to rezone 205 McKenzie Avenue from residential low density to residential medium density. This would allow for the construction of a 4-unit multifamily structure. This is first reading, which means that if we approve this, we will get more information at the public hearing in regards to exactly what's being proposed, and the neighborhood will have an opportunity to comment as well. So it makes sense to go to the public hearing because information is good.
Anything further, Councillor Hebert?
No further comment.
Anything further of council? Anything closing? Go for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have 9G. This is a resolution request from the Steinbach Swim Club. Mr. Working, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, members of council, this is an application for grant funding being applied for by Steinbach Skimmers for some equipment at the city's aquatic center. Under conditions that are part of the grant application, as the Steinbach Skimmers, as the applicants are not the owners of the facility, the grant funding program requires official permission from the facility owner, being the city of Steinbach. And copies of the grant application are included for your information, and a draft resolution granting such approval by City Council is provided on page 101 for Council's consideration. Recommendation is for Council to approve that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Worthington. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Penner?
I'd like to put a resolution for this, please.
Okay. Second by Councilor Hebert. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a former alumni of the Steinbach Swim Club and participant, I really enjoyed my time there, and starting blocks is the best way to start your race. So anytime that they're looking at getting grant funding for reinvestment into our facilities, I think that's a great opportunity to partner with that club.
Thank you. Anything further, Councilor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is Steinbach's opportunity, or the city's opportunity to facilitate the grant, and so as indicated by Councillor Penner, this is a great program and well worth our efforts.
Okay, thank you. Anything further of council? Councilor Hebert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great program, and we want to promote healthy living, and this is part of it, so I approve of it.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have number 9H. This is the auditor appointment. That starts on page 102. Mr. Worthington, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, every so often the city must appoint its auditors for the organization, and previously the city of Steinbach had appointed the firm of Reed and Miller for a 3-year audit engagement, which ended December 31st, 2021. Recommendation from administration is that City Council approve the appointment of Reed and Miller as the city's auditors for the 2022 fiscal year. Recommendation and resolution is present on page 103.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Worthington. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Hebert, second by Councilor Siemens.
Motion to approve.
To approve, yeah. Okay.
We have, as a city, we have used Reed and Miller in the past. They have, according to administration, have given us an excellent bang for our buck. I noticed the price is $51,500, and because they know our city, they've audited us before. I think it's good, not only precedent, but it's good management by us to use this firm in the future. So I'm in favor of Reed and Miller again auditing us this coming year.
Anything further, Councilor Siemens?
Just a further note, it's the city of Steinbach they're auditing, plus the Jacob Library and the Steinbach Community Development Corporation as well. So I think there's good value here.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
No, nothing further.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Are there any questions of council? Okay, seeing none.
Are we going to accept the Seine Rat Roseau?
Yeah, that's number 11. Yeah.
Sorry.
Correspondence and petitions. We've got 11A, Seine Rat River Roseau, or Seine Rat Roseau Watershed District. Minutes referring to the June 28th and the August 16th. Council, how would you like to proceed? Take as information. Okay. And there's no other business. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Next regular council meeting is Tuesday, October 16th.